Like, so I think the way to, and you see what happened in Jackson State, just one season, 2 seasons with Prime, and it was like now everybody all of a sudden wants to go. Whether we like or not, human beings are fickle and ridiculous, and we like entertainment, and so sports are the way. And they build up those sports facilities to be able to train these athletes and get them to the NFL and the NBA and all that. And they stop going to PWIs. Watch how that money change.
See, even Jackson State though. So, and I'm with you. Like, I think the Jackson State thing was a wonderful experiment, right? So, one, Jackson State already has the biggest HBCU stadium in the country. It seats 70,000 people. It's Jackson State Stadium. Yeah, Jackson's Veterans Stadium is Jackson State's football stadium. It seats 70K. It's the biggest one. They were filling that joint out anyway. People care about Jackson State football in Mississippi. Prime comes there. All of a sudden, we all care about Jackson State, right? So we're all invested in what's going on there. He brings in the facilities, He brings money to enhance facilities and do all the stuff. He gets down there, it's a mess. He's like, I'm gonna do all these things, build these things up. Boom, boom, boom. He does that stuff, and he was able to swing a couple like 5-star recruits, people he was related to, right? He's able to bring his kids there and stuff like that. But Travis Hunter, but he's struggling to do that in Colorado now. Like, he can't even. He should have the best recruiting class in the country and can't do it to save his life. So what it did highlight, I think, down there was that once you put a spotlight on a school, then all the companies and stuff, all these companies were showing up like, we're going to go money, we're going to invest in. So I think you're 100% right. But I wonder if that thing is replicable in other places without the cult of personality of somebody like Deion Sanders showing up.
Basically, if you bring the players, then people have to win. White people have to fight for them. And everybody's fighting for them, and the students are choosing the Black programs because they can train them in the way that they feel like they can go to the league. They will pick those schools, and then they'll get the money from the Walmarts and the local. Will invest in the school as well because that's what there is to do, particularly the schools that are in college town. A lot of HBCUs in these little random pull-up places give them a reason to coalesce around your institution, and it's always going to be about sports. And I just think if HBCUs are more competitive in getting athletes, that it would make money funnel in different directions. If people think investing in the program will get, more of the players that they want to that school, they'll invest the money, including the Black alumni who, keeping it a buck, aren't the best at giving back to our schools. If we're keeping it,
we trash at it. I'll tell you. We are so. I'm wanting to run it through.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, I'm trying to figure out a way to segue this.
You can't.
You don't have to. Just
Into the book club. Yeah. So, welcome world. Welcome to our. What is this? February book club discussion. My mind's all over the place. For Black Gun Silver Star, the life and legend of Frontier Marshal Bass Reeves. We read this book for Black History Month in February, and we're discussing it today. This was my pick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm reading faces already.
That's hilarious.
Could you come around when you get a chance?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
For sure.
So, all right. So, this is a straight history book.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, we will. This will be an interesting conversation. I was excited about this book simply because I do have a sentimental affinity for Westerns. Watching my grandfather and my pops watch Westerns, but never seeing like really Black personalities, Black characters in those Westerns I saw growing up. So to learn about Bass Reeves and to know that the urban legend is he is the inspiration behind, was it the Lone Ranger?
Lone Ranger, yeah.
Lone. Okay. The Lone Ranger, that like just filled my heart with like just childlike glee. So when I saw this book and was able to put it on my shelf, I made this a book to be read. Granted, I will be upfront and honest. I'd never cracked open a book before.
My first did you know this was a history book?
I was going to ask that
so I had it sitting in the biography section. Okay, so it's sitting in the biography section. So I thought it would read more like a biography, or even if someone's telling the story of Bass Reeves, I thought it would read more like it. But getting into it, I was like, oh,
yes.
All right, this is gonna be an interesting.
Getting Chronicles.
yeah. This is gonna be a interesting conversation here. So, I think to bring the energy into the conversation, we definitely want to open it up to a lot of the other aspects of Bass Reeves, the movie that came out. I would love to talk about even what this whole 1883 mini thing is going on, because I still have a
mini thing.
So they have all these.
Talk about like
the series.
1923, 1883. With the Yellowstone.
Yeah,
Yellowstone. Taylor Sheridan. I mean, Taylor Sheridan did the Bass Reeves joint.
Yeah, so this is, I think, a part of that type of setup. And again, I'm just a person who wants to see more, to know that the idea of the cowboy was what's the word, Hollywoodized to be like these white people, but in this area there was a lot of black folk doing a whole lot of things out there. So I think we can just get into all sorts of conversation, because it's not as juicy a read, but I think if you're interested, it's a good read to have, right? You can, I'm just like imagining what's behind your smile right now. Okay, Derek, you done put me through this. So.
I will say, I'm happy to say that because I was reading another book at the same time, I was like, I can't read two. I'm going to audible this one. And that was the Lord smiling on me to audible this book, because I would not have finished it if I had to read it. Because as he was reading these testimonies, I was like, oh, this is like reading Chronicles. Ain't no way I'd have got through this like on my own. So I would say I actually enjoyed it because I wasn't reading it. I was listening to somebody else read it. And little details like, oh, okay, come on. Right? Like I think I was able to catch some of the more like juicy things that happened, because I wasn't like reading the testimony, like lawyer, answer. I was like, oh God.
Yeah.
Not you reading testimony. But I enjoyed the book in the sense of like I learned about a part of the country that I think, even with people who are really into Black history, we kind of like learned Black history like east of the Mississippi River. And so to like learn about what Black people were doing west of the Mississippi, I think in the more kind of like uncharted territory of the United States was cool. Had no appreciation for Oklahoma, like on the whole, like as a territory before becoming a state. Where it looks like once it became a state is when it went to hell. But before that, it was like cool out there. Once it finally became a state. But yeah, so I enjoyed it best because I know it's because I didn't have to read it.
All right. Okay. I have a comment on that.
100%. I audibled this joint, and then I skipped to the end. I was like, is this going anywhere outside of just straight history? And no, it wasn't, which is fine. It was a history book. It's a wonderful resource. I did learn a lot, obviously, because there's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
I did watch the series, so I was familiar with Bass Reeves before.
Okay.
I don't exactly know why, but I'm not familiar with the name. I knew he was a Black, like, marshal or whatever he was. No, he was a marshal, whatever he was.
U.S. Marshal.
U.S. Marshal. Okay, yeah. I knew that, but I think that's all I knew. I did know that he was in like Indian territory, but I didn't know where. So this filled in all those kind of gaps. And again, I did watch the series with David Oyelowo, whichever one his name is. But I did find it interesting. There was some interesting stuff. It just got a little long at some point. It definitely was like, all right, he killed 14 men. And we got like 1,000 pages, it feels like.
Right, when they did that summary, I was like, only 14?
Yeah, I mean, I was like, man, I was like, there got to be more people in
Like he
here.
was killing somebody every week.
But you know what I thought about that? It's like, just think about how long it was. Like, you know, I'm trying to envision him chasing down people that did something on this date and having to spend a month just trying to get to them, you know, and then making sure you got the right person and then taking them all over. There's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of lonely downtime out there.
Lone Ranger.
Yeah, like I did, you know, so I was trying to like put that in perspective of, man, it was just a long time of trying to get to the criminals that you had to bring back and maybe kill. I mean, you went all that way to kill somebody and then you still got to get back. You know, there's a lot of that, but I did find it interesting. I was going to ask you if you knew that this was that kind of book when you picked it. Yeah. But, you know, I guess my life is better for having listened to 75% of it.
Well, thank you.
The narrator was not bad. He was actually all right.
He was all right. Yeah. So I wasn't expecting it. I don't know. For some reason in my head, I was thinking Texas. But to find out that a lot of this was taking place in Oklahoma, that did have a sort of appreciation. I had appreciation for because that's where Ramunda is from. So being out there in some places like in the know here, like Muskogee and some of these other terms, and know that I've driven through there, it did, like you said, kind of give some additional meaning to that area for me. Because right now it's just like, you know, I can kind of claim my East Coast bias now. Like, yeah, once you go past a certain part of the country, like, what is it? Where is it even at? Like, what is happening out there? So I found that to be very interesting. And I did like the fact that I did find it very interesting, as you said, the part about him having to, well, there's a couple things. I was very confused in the beginning when he talked about, how did he explain it? I forgot. He was talking about, so the black people who were owned by Native Americans that were then, because they had a different term he had for them, so they weren't just like freedom, and they were like, he had a different term for them. So that took a while for me to kind of understand what he was saying, because I know in Oklahoma there's a lot of people who have this ancestry that requires them to prove that they are actually a citizen of these nations, right? And so I found that interesting that we don't talk about that a lot. This is historical fact that Native Americans enslaved a number of black folk. Like, to read that in the book and to like actually be a part of this conversation was it didn't like startle me, but I don't know what the word, it just kind of like shook me, like, yes, of course, this was a part of history as well. So there were definitely things I took from it.
This is some quality ginger beer, bro.
Did you listen to it? Did you listen to it, or did you read it?
I listened to it.
I listened to it.
What y'all think?
I listened to it.
Yeah, I listened to it. I mean, I like it.
I tried to read it. I just couldn't. Too many court cases.
Yeah, that
like
part.
The beginning, way too many court. I thought they were going to talk about more of his life, and then when they started talking about the Native American, I was kind of confused of what they were talking about.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then they were like, he was owning this property and all the stuff he was doing in 18. They didn't really explain how he was doing all this from the beginning, unless he got to it later.
No, I think for the most part, it was about him being a marshal. I wish they would have talked more about, and maybe he just couldn't find it.
Because then we don't like now the idea of a black person doing what he's doing at that time doesn't seem possible. So it would have been great for him to contextualize it some.
Well, I mean, I think it became possible to say that like he really only apprehended black people and Indians.
Yeah.
Right.
So actually, I think it was pretty.
Yeah, he was the black. He was the black gatherer.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, even when they talked about one part where he went to arrest someone, and it was a white guy, and he told him, he was like, "Oh well, I'll let dude, like, I know you don't like white people like being arrested by black people, so I'm gonna let buddy like arrest you." And he was like, okay. I was like, white people are crazy as hell. This man, he were like, yeah, I won't be arrested by you because you're black. I'll just get arrested by the other one. I was like, what can you say? Like,
that's what I found interesting. The part that I did read, he was like that, but he arrested white folks in some of those parts. In the
but
beginning.
very few. It made it. He said a number of times that he arrested very, very few white people. Like,
Right.
It was pretty much 95% black people and Native people who he was arresting. And at the beginning, he was operating out of the Creek Nation. He wasn't even operating like in the U.S. territory part. Right. He was operating within the Creek Nation. And so that's why he was a federal officer and being a U.S. Marshal to go kind of like police
black folk,
the Indians and the black folk in the incorporated portion of the, as we were still operating as U.S. plus the territories.
I think if he had contextualized it a little bit more, it could have been a seller and less cases.
So what do you mean contextualize?
Talk about him being a marshal more. How did that come about? He kind of hit on it, but he kind of didn't. Set the landscape of what was going on with the Native Americans. Just kind of touch on that just a little bit and then talk about how he fit into that.
I mean, this was definitely a heavy research. Like, it was a heavy research. Like if you were to tell me this was somebody's like history dissertation on, you know, black lawmen of the Indian territories, like that would fit just fine. Because I actually do think I felt like it was too long it was too detailed for something just to read, right? It was a very good resource book, but like to read it was too long. It had way too many. There was more information than I needed because the point was very clear for a lot of the stuff. That's why. So I kind of skipped towards the end because I was like, I wonder if there's some type of putting this into like the societal context or a cultural context thing, and maybe it did happen, and my eyes rolled back or something.
What did he say at the end? Did I?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even gotten to the end.
It just basically, to be honest,
he was a bad man.
To be honest, you could have really skipped to chapter 20 because chapter 20 they literally summarized the entire.
So book. That's where I'm at right now. I'm in chapter 20.
What
I got
in chapter 20.
He just summarized the whole book.
Yeah, Basta did a lot. He's a bad man who did a lot of things. Like, you know, like not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good. You know, Run DMC.
But he was arresting us.
Well, somebody got to do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
people somebody there.
People was out here stealing people's horses and shit. You have to get arrested for that.
He arrested his own son, right?
He wants to be free.
Well, I also wanted to not kill people and steal people's horses.
If we kill somebody, I'm like, that's free.
And you got to just think you're running with somebody's house.
I'm just
somebody has to be like, I live here now. Why? Because my preacher who served the cult said that we can inhabit anybody's house we want, and that's it.
Yeah. So maybe I get out of the library. Maybe I go back and read chapter 20.
You have to go to
it
just summarizes
it. Yeah, I wouldn't even do that.
Because if I would have read it, there's no way I would have finished it. I only finished it because I was listening to it.
Yeah, I didn't even own that. I just started listening to it because the reason I didn't buy the thing, I didn't pick it up myself, is because a friend of mine has the book and was like, he's like, dude, my eyes glossed over like 10 minutes into this thing. He was like, it was like I was reading a textbook.
Me too. And I tried my darndest to like stay too many cases that he didn't contextualize some.
Mm-hmm. And also too detailed. I don't need to know the testimony. Can you just tell me what happened?
Right, that's what got me.
I was actually surprised that I could keep up with it listening to it. That I was like, oh, this is not as bad as I'm with you. I wouldn't have read this. I would have stopped. But listening to it, I was like, okay, this is maybe that's credit to the narrator, like the way he delivered the information. Also sped that bad boy up, and I was still over here like, man, it's gonna be like this the whole way. This could have been an email.
So many details, like you said, with the court cases. I mean, he was going down to the testimony. I'm like,
but they also said early on, like this was one, like there's not a lot about him, right? Like there was never anything that really, like, because that's what I think drew me in early on listening was that they were talking about how all these people who were scholars of this stuff really did do a good job with the black people. Right. Like they're all, or they mentioned the black people and they thought that they were the liberal ones doing the good work, but they didn't really do a good job of like doing service to the black people who were in the space. So I think maybe that's probably why I listen to more. Because I'm like, all right, so now we got a cause and a mission here.
Right.
Just got really
I tried to do that too. I mean, the story itself is fascinating. Like his life and all that.
Yeah, the Paramount series is pretty good. I mean, I would recommend watching that.
Wait a minute, it's on TV?
So there's a series about him that kind of starts with, it's called Bass Reeves.
It's on what?
It's on Paramount Plus.
Oh wow!
And it was like there was a whole. It was supposed to be like a big deal when it dropped because one, Taylor Sheridan is the writer and creator of it, and he did Yellowstone, 1883 and 1923. So he's that. He's a big deal when it comes to doing this stuff. He does a really good job with them. So I watched the Bass Reeves joint. It wasn't as compelling to me as like Yellowstone or even 1883 because that joint had me in my feelings. But I didn't know I didn't care about white people that much. I gotta be honest with you.
You got cousins.
No,
You gotta care about your
I was
cousins.
aside from my mama and
You
my
gotta care about your
grandma.
cousins.
The rest of them, it's a struggle. The
Yeah,
rest
it's
of the family is a struggle. But these people on TV, I was in my feelings about. Like it's emotional.
No, which one is
That's also on
emotional?
Paramount?
Yeah, they're all on Paramount. But so Yellowstone was on. It's on Paramount now too. But that one's also streaming on like Hulu or Peacock or something like that.
Okay. What was that? 18.
Bass Reeves was only on Paramount, but it might be on one of the other ones now because there's only 8 episodes of the first part of it, and that came out in November, I think, back in November, something like that. So
not too long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about what's interesting, and actually, it just made me think of.
I know.
It's just ginger.
really strong ginger beer.
I need that for my
Yes, it was going to clear out. It's like drinking horse radish. It's strong. I actually thought this was wow.
And what does your shirt say?
Oh, this is good people.
Ah.
My brother's rap group.
So what's interesting about this, and we talked about this at the Michael Harriot book event, that not all history books are readable, right? It takes a special type of writer to write a history book that actually is compelling and, dare I say, entertaining, right?
Right.
This is not one of those history books, but it's illuminating because it really got me wanting to read more about. And I even dread to use this terminology, but like learning more about the 5 civilized nations, right? Like learning more about Seminole Creek, all these people, and the stuff that they were enduring, right? Because there are parts of it where there's a lot of overlap with us and them, right? So that was one of the things that came out of this was like just kind of piqued my interest more as something I would like to learn more about. But just as a read, I think it's tougher. I could definitely see it though. Like when you say a textbook, it did kind of like ding, because then you're sitting there at least breaking it up, and you're putting some of the stuff into context, maybe with other happenings, at the same time.
But he assumed the reader knew a lot about that time period.
You think so?
And he jumped right into it.
Well, I kind of felt like the assumption was that people don't know anything. So I'm going to put everything in here as much as...
He just started out by talking about him arresting blacks and Indians and blah, blah, blah. He just jumped right into that. And so what's the time frame? I mean, I understand the time frame, but give us some contextualize. Because think about, a lot of people don't know a lot about that, the Native American time. We just don't know. We haven't been taught that stuff.
Yeah, so,
because think about American history, when we in this country, we learn about like Native Americans being.
But see, I think that would have made it a textbook as opposed to a story about him. So I kind of view this as like the goal of this was to be a definitive retelling of the history of Bass Reeves as a lawman in Indian Territory and in Oklahoma at the time before Oklahoma becomes a state, and then briefly after Oklahoma becomes a state when he retired in the early 1900s, whatever. Like I felt like it was really you do not have to ask any more questions about Bass Reeves and his record. We put this all here. All the other people that didn't do a good job, I did a good job of this. This is my entire goal, is to do that thing. As opposed to even being a read or something that you would read without. This is a resource, right? This is. If I'm doing a story on Bass Reeves, this is what I need, right? This is where I'm starting because this is probably going to lead me to the other stuff. As opposed to like Michael Harriot's book or Tanisha Ford's book, Our Secret Society, about Molly Moon. Like that is a narrative story about Molly Moon and the Harlem Renaissance and those people like that. Like that is a compelling read that reads less like a history book and more like ooh, let me see what's happening here,
But I think maybe that's part of it is part of the time period, and where he was. Because again, at the beginning of the book, the point was kind of like, he probably set us up like, I can't give y'all no biography because I can't find nothing.
Yeah.
So everything I know about him, I'm about to get from these court cases, and so that's how I'm going to find out what he did was through these court cases and like piece together his life from the court cases, which is why we got so much court case, because that is where he was piecing his life together was from the court cases. When you think about the context of who he was with, the Native Americans and Black people who were all about oral history, it makes sense that didn't nobody write anything down. Everybody just talked about him.
He couldn't read and write.
And he couldn't read and write.
And all them kids.
Well, he found time to make sure now.
You know them kids.
Well,
When he came back.
It sounds like a lot of judgment in your voice.
No.
That was a different time.
No. I'm saying every time we did it, we would have kids. We would all have 100.
Well, those were your employees.
This man was gone for a month at a time. Came back home.
He ended up marrying somebody who was.
But it's a testimony to us eating fresh fruits and vegetables. You can have more kids because their wife was at home probably eating them good fresh fruits, and she was first.
What?
We have a misconception that
we need to eat more fresh fruits.
Everybody in the past was just having a whole bunch of kids. Everybody wasn't having a bunch of kids. If your body said you had, some people was still out having 2, even though they was having sex however much as their husband wanted to. 2 was all they got.
Yeah. This is so.
Some people would eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. I'm just saying. You ate a lot and you had a bunch of kids.
I would have. Sorry, I definitely agree with you on the
Right.
on the thing about the context, because the two thoughts that come to mind is, are you talking about the amount of time he spent on the road, right, horseback, getting to all these different places, hunting people down, getting them back to the marshal, and
with that wagon. Remember, he had the wagon.
right? Yeah, and you got like what 5 to 7 people was part of his posse, a cook and all this other stuff.
You could have a cook. There was like a amount of people you could have based on what you could pay them out of your fees and stuff like that.
So what was interesting about that is when he did get home, what was that family life like? Because it was interesting in the TV show, they tried to portray a piece of that, him being gone all the time, and his wife just like being in this big house on all this land, surrounded by all these white folk who are looking at you like.
Well, they had money. I mean, they said he was making dough back then.
Yeah. When he said he made $6,000 on lunch, that's money.
Yeah, but he's still, his wife is still alone with these kids in this house without like someone there to help protect them, right? That's my thinking. That is something that it does leave her wide open to a lot of possible craziness.
Yeah, it was giving PK energy. That's why his kids was getting in trouble because they daddy long.
Right. So that was so I was thinking about that. So I would love more context around like, and there may not be any history on what that dynamic was like, but a book that I absolutely love that started out as a research project into like straight just history that the writer turned into a historical fiction is a book called Freeman. So a journalist named Leonard Pitts, he was doing research on 1865 post-emancipation, the individuals who had escaped from the South. They began. He was like, there's a lot of like history to support this, of a lot of Black folk walking back into the South to try to find their family, their loved ones. So what started as a research project into what was happening during this time, what he chose to do, instead of going by like all the documentation and stuff, he turned that into a historical fiction book. Right. So it became compelling, right, about this time of our history, using the facts, but I'm gonna create some fictional people around it, right? So, and use some of the different stories to cobble together one big story that all these different things maybe happen to this one person or whatever. But I'm just thinking about the different ways that the author could have went about writing this kind of story, because it does leave some open to like, okay, so what was this person like? Because I would assume he had to be a very, like, his shooting skill, like what contributed to this? His fortitude. Dude had to be brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
Dressing up. Going in disguise. I'm like being an undercover cop.
Like, can't read or write, but writing reports.
Right. Like I'm
reading warrants.
Yeah.
Keeping track of all the warrants.
It's so there's a lot there that still would be interesting to know about.
Yeah. I think so.
So I definitely get what you're saying there, but
but the way he talked, like in this book, like I admire him for doing it because he was like it's nothing. Like he had to really dig and dig and dig to find things about this man.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not a lot.
Yeah.
So I admire the work for a book to be that long.
Look,
when there's nothing out there. So I was thinking like now, if he did a book like The Warmth of Other Suns, right? You see how she did those stories, but I'm sure he couldn't do that. Like tell those stories, even those cases, in the form of stories, like those cases that we might have been more compelled to be like, okay, tell the cases and then put him in the story.
Right.
Make them real, but make them into a story, and then it may be more compelling to. Yeah. Because like with Isabel Wilkerson, every one of those like a little story when she talked about people going to, Chicago. California. Little stories. I think he could have done that with that. Somebody else could do that. He did his part.
I was say, because that seems like it'd be on the table. And the series is kind of like that, right? Like it's definitely a bunch of assumptions about what happened and things that happened. Even his origins, like how he kind of became Bass Reeves, like the marshal. Like the show starts out with that. He's not Bass Reeves yet, like the guy. Like he's. He kind of ends up there through whoever the white dude was in the beginning. That was kind of like helping to make his way, whatever. But
right.
So part of the thing, I really do like that idea of dramatizing the different pieces of it. But the writer is he's a retired professor of history, so he may not necessarily have the skill set, right? Yeah. So you would have to marry, He
got to get somebody else to do that.
But I like what Panama said, which is like if you're doing a research project, like this is a definitive one, you have all of your facts in one place you can come to. Maybe it's time for someone else to come up behind and make it more of a dramatization. But we still have a lot more to gain, I think, especially for all the things they have on Wyatt Earp. Like we can continue to make stories about Bass Reeves.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of just stopping there. I'm glad the guy. I didn't know who was this? You said Taylor Sheridan. So I'm unfamiliar with him, so I need to.
He's the dude. Everything Yellowstone is all him. He's the one that did all that stuff. And I'm telling you, 1883 is actually a really good show to watch. Like.
I wasn't going to. Now you say it. I was like,
I don't know. Nobody started watching show.
White folks.
Yellowstone is like The Wire, but set on a ranch in Wyoming, bro. Like that shit is wild, dog. Like, it is wild. There's Omar character and everything, bro. Like I'm telling you.
1883.
1883 is like the super prequel, and then 1923 is like the prequel.
So then, do you have to watch? So it goes 1883.
So. Yellowstone is the one that has like 7 seasons. Or however many seasons. It's like the 1883 is 1 season. 1923 is 1 season. It's just how you get, because Yellowstone is a ranch. Right. So it's like the Dutton Ranch. So it's the story of that. 1883 kind of explains how we get there in the first place, which is wild because you're watching it and you can't figure out how they got there because they're nowhere near Montana. They're like the whole like, how the hell did we get here? And then they have this like, bro, like, oh my God, this is how we got here. So then you just gotta watch the rest of it. So it's I'm just saying, like in terms of storytelling
and Yellowstone.
Yeah, Yellowstone is the TV, the one that got everybody hooked. They had what's his face in it? Kevin Costner. Yo, it's some wild folks on their show. Trust me. It's entertaining. So
I'm seeing
the part of this that really caught my imagination was, and this is how they tell the story in the show of how he became Bass Reeves and Marshall, is that the person who owned him, I forget what guy, Joseph Reeves or whatever his name was a colonel or something in the Confederate Army. and forced Bass Reeves to go with him into war, fighting to defend slavery.
That reminds me, the part of the thing that really was like, oh, these white people, ooh, they've been on it. When he said that Bass Reeves first asked if he could learn how to read, he said, no, but you can carry this gun. So let me get this straight. You won't give him a book, but you won't give him a gun? Yeah, no. I was like, wait a minute, rewind, back up 30 seconds. Say that again. That he asked learn, he was like, nope, but I will let you carry this gun. He wasn't afraid he was gonna kill him, shoot him, or nothing. He let that boy carry a gun, taught him how to shoot, but refused to let him learn how to read.
Yeah. So I mean, that whole part of it, I think, is like there's a lot to just play with, like as a storyteller, as a content creator, if you're doing TV shows, movies, or whatever.
It's a lot to do.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm trying to think. It really irks me. What is the new movie that just come out? Because there is like how Hollywood reproduces these shows about certain mythologies like all the time, and there's something new that is about to hit now.
Bob Marley.
No. But it's about white culture. Let's say that about white history, right? This mythology.
Mm-hmm.
No. What it is? So like Shogun. So like you have all these big epics about this period of time for all these different cultures and civilizations, but there's a scarcity of these type of shows based around our history, and it just goes back to think like how many different stories can you tell about Bass Reeves? How many different stories, like they found that the story that they did around The Harder They Fall, right? Like all these different people, they can build just tremendous mythologies around. It doesn't have to be fact. It can just be stories and content that you have featuring Black folk and their history and their culture, but we get very little of that, right? So it's just something that just kind of jumps to mind.
Why? I disagree with that. I think could we get more? I don't feel like we're at a dearth of Black content about, like, how many damn Underground Railroad shows and things like that.
That's a different thing.
No, but it's history, right? Like it's fictionalized in some cases.
It's the kind of history they're telling.
But we're telling those stories. What are you talking about? We're the writers of these things. We're the ones doing that.
It's Hollywood putting money behind shows that talks about us as victims of slavery and getting out of slavery. When Hollywood puts money behind Shogun is a story about like this valiant civilization. Like it's a different.
Yeah, I'm watching that right now. That joint is wild.
Yeah, it's a different feeling. So it's the type of stories they're putting their money behind. It's a different kind of story to talk about Bass Reeves. It's a different kind of story of having of walking independent, of escaping from slavery, to keep reminding us of the servitude that we were in. That's a different type of story to tell.
So you mean like you want something from like Mansa Musa?
Yes. Yes. The Yoruba people, of the people.
Well, we got the Woman King.
Right.
That was based on the real woman.
And this is recent, right? So it's recent. There's more some stuff coming out, but when you look at it compared to how long we've been telling these stories of all these other civilizations, like when they do movie after movie about Egypt and their gods, right? And
the Roman Empire.
Yeah, and then they forget that Egypt is actually an African country. Like these are African people, right? Like so, it becomes it continues to reduce the worthiness of our civilization, of our culture, and it only focuses on us post-colonization as people coming out of slavery. That's my issue, because there's a bigger story to tell. We can tell the story of the Moors, how they conquered all of the Iberian Peninsula. Ain't no one did a movie about that.
I don't know, man. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, man. Remember Morgan Freeman was in there.
Oh my God.
He was in there.
Sir.
You kill me not?
He was there. Just saying. He was part of the, he was there.
So
I mean, you're not wrong. I do think though we have more. Look, and I'm not. We all know I don't love slave narratives. I'm not a big fan of more of those. But we are getting more stories that we're controlling the narrative and telling them from our perspective more. Like that is happening more.
That's happening more. Yes. So I
and that's the only direction it can go, right? Like we tell more. We're getting more of that stuff.
But we have to also acknowledge or have a certain knowledge base to know that we have more to pick from in terms of what our history is. So if we're only limited to this is our history and this is where we tell stories from, versus the gambit of the entire African diaspora and how we influence civilization, the kind of stories we get are going to be limited as well. We have to first expand the boundaries of what's possible, of all that we've touched and all that we've done. Like people didn't know about, like the Woman King movie was like, oh my God, this actually happened. Like, but we've had an education system in Black History Month for how many years, and no one knew this was even out there. Like that's my point, is that there's so little.
And we do one and think it's done.
And it's right. And
it's not. Like even like now, we talk about slave narrative. I heard Jasmine Ward, like her latest book is phenomenal. I think about how many slaves there were, right? How many different stories are there? Gazillions.
No, that's real, but
so if I'm with her, it ain't enough of them. You know, we do 10 and think we're done.
No, I'm thinking enough of this.
Me and Tisa had this argument at my house.
Like her, like Jasmine Ward's latest book. I haven't read a slave narrative like it before. Daniel's Black was one that he just wrote. A slave narrative, never read anything like it. It was the most beautiful. So there's so many people doing this stuff in a creative, beautiful, like Daniel Black is on it. Jasmine Ward latest is top shelf. It's things that you've never read before. And even with the new one she did now, she's looking at it from a perspective that it's almost like Woman King. The girl, the first weapons I knew was her mama's teaching her how to fight, the little girl, and the travel and all that.
There are some good ones like An American Queen by Vanessa Miller, that's new, which does talk about the self-proclaimed once they free themselves king and queen. I think another good adaptation, right? Or I guess it's a bit different because he likes to do genre bending, but Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a slave narrative, but he really calls out some stuff like what is really racial uplift? Like what does it really mean to be progressive and go towards the north, towards freedom.
Yeah.
So
because we think we know that story, and you hear these people doing this stuff, we don't know that story.
Or even
we don't
like
think we don't know like we think we do.
So, oh no, man, because I hear you. I do. We don't know every story, but we are. It seems like. So, for instance, I really enjoy like any of the Afrofuturist books that we read. Like I enjoy that kind of stuff because it's like it's giving me a vision of a world that somebody else is building, that it's like it gives you, it's kind of idealistic in the idea that you get to envision a world that you want to see or whatever. Whereas I do think even the most creative of slave narratives, and there are some good ones, I'm not saying that they're not good. I do feel like I'm just getting a different version of the same story a lot. And that's not fair, but it is how I tend to receive a lot of it. And it makes it hard for me to like, let me go read this one too, and then read this one too. Because it's kind of speaks. There's so many options in that genre, so to speak. Like you could literally put a shelf over here, just put slave on it, and the whole thing would be full, right? You can do that, and you know, it's okay to do the other stuff.
I don't know. I think for me, I think like I would love to see it reemerge and be thing now is to see like Black people in like our regular everyday life. So I randomly started watching 227 again on Hulu, and I just love. It's like it's nothing. It's some regular random Black people living in their everyday life. Like there's nothing. It's nothing. It's just some Black people who are neighbors living together, and everybody play their role and do their thing. And it's just like we don't have that anymore, where you kind of just watch Black people just like be human and like live our regular lives, apart from the oppression. I just want us to be human in the sense that like we do live.
That's why I'm enjoying the First Wives Club. I'm enjoying that. They're just some.
We get the shows, but they cancel them. Like Grand Crew, we were just talking about that. Yeah. That was like a group of friends who just got together, and like it was more comedic than like serious, but they canceled it. Like even Rap-ish, right, by Issa Rae canceled. You know,
Like the show wasn't that good.
Don't start with me today.
That was a really good show.
Which one?
Grand Crew.
Grand Cool is cool. I'm saying rap shit was not that great of a show.
Okay.
It was a mess. The second season was a absolute mess.
Anyway.
I do. I'm with you. Like something about the First Wives Club that I'm enjoying. Like it's like
That was entertaining.
No, I don't like that those shows got canceled. Don't get me wrong.
right. It feels like just regular
like
people, middle class folks that we doing who just living our lives. It's just regular. It feels regular.
I mean, the thing is, we need both of it, right? Is the thing is that it needs to be a variety produced. Some of high quality, some of low quality. Like when we were talking about earlier, some of that is going to happen. But the thing that it reminds me of is, and this is what the talk touched on in the book, there were white historians who were writing about Oklahoma and its history, and they just completely overlooked, right, Bass Reeves and all that he did. And to me, what it reminds me of is most people aren't reading, right? Most people are consuming television, right? That's their source. That's what they look at most.
You think?
There's far more people who watch TV and read compared to reading.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
people don't read.
Jackie, you are.
I think people read.
I just want to be helpful.
Right? No.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, but Harmony got two stories.
Okay,
I'm trying to be helpful.
Okay, I'm taking from you.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to be helpful.
We are growing more and more.
And y'all in the airport. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm just trying to be helpful, y'all.
So we are growing more readers. I guess the point I'm trying to get to is that the average person is going to watch TV, videos, movies, or whatever, and what they see as, again, the preeminent culture, right, mythology, is people that don't look like us. And it just bothers me when as a reader, I know there's so much more, and there's so many different ways to tell that story, right? When you think about Tomi Adeyemi and what she did with Children of Blood and Bone,
amazing.
she just
I'm in it.
broke it open. Oh, you can tell a fantasy story about a Yoruba tradition, right? And its people,
she
and
told
it
it
has
up.
introduced all of these writers into the marketplace to tell this story because she just told her story. This is who she is as a person.
She told it.
So that's my point. Is this? There's so much more of that can happen, but big, Hollywood, big publishers, they're not financing it. They're not putting the money behind it to make some of those things accessible and make people know that it's even available, right? So, and people don't, because they don't know they exist, they don't have the imagination to create something from that because it's not in front of them.
So speaking of her with the Children of Blood and Bone, so she got the most money of anybody ever for a young adult book, right? Ever. The people who did that, did they see the future? Did they see, you know what I'm saying? Did they see something we didn't see? Because that's not a book, I think, like she did it, but
I don't know. I think they read that draft and was like, huh. When something's good,
it's good, right?
It's good.
Because she got more money than
it's good. Yeah, when something's good, it's good.
It's good, right? But I was wondering, like, were they thinking, like, who gonna read this? You know how you do with black folks, like,
I think you still had those people.
Yeah, of course.
And I guess I'm just saying, but whoever took a chance on her, because remember she got the money before that they were ever written.
It's a big team between literary agents, editors, and the people who are buying these books on behalf of the publisher.
She got a whole big old check before they were ever written.
I don't do that cosplay stuff, but as soon as I hit the screen, I'm at the movie theater with a long white wig.
I
can't wait.
What, 3 or 4 years ago now?
The second one.
It just came 2019.
Well, the first was a while ago. It was pre-pandemic, so she was running around her. a long while ago.
Oh yeah, it
before
came
the
out way
pandemic.
before the pandemic.
Yeah, it came out before. I
So
was
the
like
Blood Bone
2018.
was
It might have been 10 years ago, y'all. This is a
No.
minute.
No.
My nephew was in middle school.
You guys-
It had to be maybe
opened in
2017.
This book came out in maybe let's say 18, 19.
Yeah, I want to say 2018. 'Cause
Yeah,
All I know is pre-pandemic.
because the
she
second
came to
book
my
came out
school.
pre-pandemic as well.
Yes, they
Yeah,
both
Yeah,
came
she
out.
came out.
pre-pandemic.
She came to my school and she was running around. I was like, "Girl, I was taking sit down somewhere because I didn't know that was her." You know, she was young at that time. She might have been 20. Running around like
She
a-
was very young. I'll give her that.
Acting
But
like a little kid. Is she little too?
to your point, Derek, I do hope they make adaptations. So everybody's excited about Percy Jackson, right? Another retelling of Greek mythology, right? But the great part about Rick Riordan is that he has the Rick Riordan Presents, and now they have the new one. So there's a series called Sir Buttonegg, and Roseanne Brown. She's great. She uses actual Nigerian folklore and tales, and actually uses Nigerian mystical creatures that we haven't been exposed to tell the story. Like on the second book, there's a 2-headed crocodile. That's imperative to Nigerian culture. So,
Yeah.
what book is it? Sir Botanegg's Guide to Vampire Hunting.
Yeah, and Kwame Mbalia.
Yeah,
does the
Tristan
same thing
Strong.
with Tristan Strong. Where
I
he
still do
uses
that. Yeah.
folklore from African American culture, and
I hate Tristan Strong. Am I a young adult book?
yeah,
God, we'll pretend we didn't hear that. Tristan Strong punches a hole in the sky. It's amazing.
yeah.
Tar Baby. He uses like John Henry's
I might have to
mythology.
try that again. I tried. I was like, this is just.
There's
not-
3 books, y'all. If you want your
You
middle
also
grade.
about John Henry. We thought, John Henry was actually a short, light-skinned black man from New Jersey.
No,
Please don't
stop it.
dispel this.
No, I'm only telling because I did the audiobook. I narrated an audiobook that was a history book about John Henry. So I'm reading this book. It's called Still Driving Man, the legend of an American folklore or something like that. Some white dude wrote this book named Scott Reynolds Nelson. Fascinating man. Wrote this book, and I'm reading it, and he does all this, digs into all the historical records, finds out where he's from, finds there's a short, light-skinned man from New Jersey, but who did face off against because I guess the book was written kind of as a response to trying to understand why the Ballad of John Henry is the most covered song of all time. Why everybody has covered this song, and then he digs into the end. It just so happens the author was he's a historian who specializes in railroad history, commodities, and all this random stuff that.
Wake up one day and be like, I'm gonna base my career on railroad.
Listen, but you know what? That man walks so that I can fly and find out who John Henry was.
I always wonder how people how they arrive.
Yeah, I asked him. I was like, you have this weird background because I ended up doing this mini pod thing with him, and I'm just asking, how did you? It's well, I just had this fascination as a child with railroads and stuff like that, and then I went into academia, and he's writing a book now about salt and how
as a white man.
Yeah,
We had privilege.
I'll go back to childhood dreams
but
every
you
time.
talk about narrative nonfiction. That book about John Henry is basically written. It's a history book that's written very much from his perspective about going through. Kind of like that one, but you're digging through the history to find all this stuff. So when I'm reading it, I'm like, this is actually really interesting, which is why I agreed to sign on to do the narration for it. Because I'm like, well, this is actually an interesting book. And I found out John Henry, the version that we think of as John Henry, which is this big burly black man, the Terry Crews looking dude, but taller. We kind of that's not who he was in real life. But
he was a big light skinned dude. Because when they described his son, I was like, oh, he's light skinned with blue eyes. I was like, Chico, the bars was just in a rage and killed this lady.
Chico the bar.
Because his son,
he was out of control.
his son, he was 6 foot, 200 pounds, light skinned, blue eyes. I was like,
His wife might have been white.
no, his wife they said she was a Negro girl. She probably was half Negro, half Cherokee or Choctaw or whatever. So, yeah, I was like, not the birds out here.
Real quick, I want to bring in one of our viewers into the conversation. So Lisa Hayes says, this is why it takes Black people to tell these stories. Pre-colonialism stories, Black presence around the globe, and how they got there, like the Black Shogun. There's so many stories to tell, and thanks to Ava DuVernay and Array, a company that supports independent film. It will take those of us who are in positions to give ourselves the green light for these projects and publishing projects as well. Yeah, and as she says, of course, no one knew this kind of history. It was not something that was promoted to tell us about. We are dealing with white supremacy and trying to find our own stories within its caste system that results from it. Try to read that as.
I will say, I wish more people. I mean, this series is on Paramount. Maybe because it's on Paramount, people didn't watch it, but it didn't blow like people thought it was going to. Because you thought like once after The Harder They Fall came out, which was really, Book of Clarence had some struggles, but
Book of Clarence is good.
No, it was not.
I love Book of Clarence.
No,
Yes, finally, this conversation.
Oh my goodness.
It was interesting.
It should have been so much better than it was. No.
It absolutely had potential to be way better.
It was a movie that wanted to be good. Just right underneath that joint. Just it wasn't funny. It wasn't a parody. It wasn't a farce. It was almost serious, but it wasn't serious. I do remember I told you that I love how the end. How they played around with the idea that how Jesus became the white man, how the real Jesus is still out here walking around, and they done hung a white man who just happened to get clean, and they was all like, "Yes, this looks like Jesus. This is Jesus we believe." I thought that was really I thought that was a very interesting playing with history. Is like okay, now white supremacy at work. We see how even we get caught up in it, right? Clean my man up when everybody was like. Oh yeah! He's a painter out here this white man. It's all these people hanging with this white man. This white man is fire, y'all. This is the brother's heart. This is it. But the rest of the movie I thought was fairly middling, if that.
I think the characters were very handsome. It was good to look at, but I really,
that's real.
When Jesus took off his head, I was in the movie theater. I went by myself. I was like he is so handsome to me. Like they were beautiful on the screen. But I'm with you. I don't think it was. But when it ended,
the movie couldn't figure out what it would be.
You're right. When it ended, I'm like, is this funny? Is it not funny? Because
it was supposed to be funny.
The trailer? No. Because when I go to see it, I was like, this is not.
I know the trailer was amazing. The trailer made that joint like
I was ready.
Bizarre ride to the far side, and you get in there and it's like, this is not that.
But see, I didn't know it was supposed to be funny, and because when they were doing the part with the beating of the guy up, that was emotional. I
thought it was gonna be.
And then it started being funny. I didn't know.
Satirical, but it was just ended up being
You couldn't figure out what movie you were trying to make.
I agree, but I did like it. But he didn't know. I didn't know.
I think that's another conversation. I messed you up.
When we get a chance, can we go back to last month?
I don't even know but what I was going to say, interestingly, you're talking about these Hollywood and people getting behind it. So on Disney Plus right now is finally an African centered animated series about Nigeria. It's called
It's called what?
I got kids.
I got a lot of kids. But also, because I'm Disney Plus, I get all these free, so they can be here, go watch this thing and write about it, or whatever. So some of them I don't pay for.
With her little frog.
But yeah, so it's like okay, we finally got one. I don't hear anybody talk about it. As soon as I saw the trailer, I was like, "What is this?" I'm started sharing.
So this is the first conversation we were having. To me, that's an issue of marketing and publicity, right? Content is just being put out there, and in the middle of everything that's happening, people are supposed to pick up on it. Jack doesn't even know it exists.
I didn't.
I don't.
So I saw the commercial.
Right. I happen to see it on social media, which is where I spend a lot of my time, which is where most people are going to find out these things. Because again, it's not a movie; it's a Disney Plus series, right? Mm-hmm. So. There's a ton of series on Disney Plus that don't get a ton that you only see when you go in there and you find out or you're on social media.
Yeah, there's a lot of space for TV commercials, for billboards, for newspaper ads. There's a whole other array of of channels that they can go to publicize this stuff. And that's what was interesting about Origins, right? Because her thing was the company that was doing the distribution behind that was falling down on a job on publicizing Origins, which is a fantastic movie.
We're falling down publicizing it to who? because it was all over everything I saw. That movie was.
But you know, if you in the mix, like my sister,
that might be an algorithm because
it's your algorithm. Because I'm telling you, a lot of people. Because after I saw it, I was telling black people, like, you heard of Origins? What is that? A lot of people didn't know. I think
I didn't know.
But to be fair, like, I don't even know if I ever saw a trailer for that.
I didn't either.
Like, I don't know.
I only saw the trailer on
her page.
I saw some. Yeah, there was something.
I saw it on her. On her page.
It wasn't like on TV. But my thing is, Oppenheimer. When that joint dropped, how many commercials did you see for Oppenheimer? That joint is still at the movie now. They're still running ads for Oppenheimer.
Is it good?
Well, yeah, they just moved it to streaming now.
It's 3 hours.
But
long.
like,
I ain't got it.
It was good, but look at Shogun. How much money they put behind Shogun and FX and how much they were publicizing that.
To be fair, I didn't know Shogun existed until today when I started watching it.
Well, I mean, I was watching. There was maybe it's the channels that I'm watching, but there was a lot of ads, TV ads for that. So it's just, again, I just come back to this thing. There's a lot of content that's out there, and to break through the noise, you have to push it much harder to make sure someone mentally checks in their head, I'm gonna go see that. Mm-hmm. Like when that drops, I'm gonna go see that. That's the thing. So even when books come out, I'm gonna go see that. I'm gonna go read that. All of that is part of these publishing companies and movie studios. That's part of their. It's
going to be a hard sell though, anyway. And I haven't seen it. I hear it's amazing, but I have my
is it a movie or a series?
It's a movie.
The movie. But it's based on a book that most people probably haven't read. And I'm saying most in the big way, right? Of somebody most people have no idea who they are. So you see, even if you find out what this is, like this is a movie about this woman's journey writing this book or whatever, like that doesn't sound exciting. Like even me as a book reader, as a movie that I got to go see, it doesn't sound exciting. Now I hear the movie's amazing. I hear it's like I will see it eventually, but that was more of a hard sell.
But see, so here's the thing. This is why I walked out from that movie thinking it was phenomenal, because I'm a bookseller, and I'm like, how are you going to tell a story about?
That's me too.
I mean, that's why Ava said she made the thing, because they told her she could do it.
And she did, and what she did was fantastic,
phenomenal.
But she turned it into this woman's
life
process story. Of like, because her dealing with the grief, the loss of her husband, the loss of her mother, mom,
her cousin.
So there's a people story there of that. I'm pretty sure some other white movie
Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah, that it's just like, I'm going to off and discover myself, right? And it's just all over the place, right? So the same thing can be said for this story, but for some reason, when they get into those offices to talk about how we're going to market it, like, well, how do we market this? Like, dude, it's the same thing. You got a movie about people, a book club movie.
But yeah, you're right. The thing with that book, like now she was over there at Sycamore. Oh, Ava, she hit the road and got it out.
She was definitely.
She was at Sycamore. Oh, she was blah blah blah. She she going all over the place. So she did the work to get it out.
I think there's a way where she also don't have to.
We had the screening we were at.
No.
Okay. So at the screening she came in and she talked about it, and part of the thing she was like, okay, yes, so we have to do this as a word of mouth marketing because this company is slipping on its job. So what we have to do is step up in its absence.
And she did that, yeah.
And really push the word of mouth.
Yeah.
Right. So that was like her response to what was, at least what she was saying from the stage at that point was a failure on the marketing of this movie from the distribution company.
Yeah, she had to get out there.
We gotta stop always blaming marketing. Anytime something don't hit, we like to blame.
But that did hit though.
But this one hit though.
That one hit. Like, she made that
movie.
I think we can't forget that we only make up 12% of the population. So even if every Black person in America really loved it, there's a way we have to measure success. I think sometimes, or I can't find the word.
But she did
No,
well.
you're exactly what you're saying is 100% right.
And the weekend it came out, it did very well.
But isn't that part of the point, word of mouth? Because didn't Tyler Perry get his start to move from stage plays to film? Because all of us were talking word of mouth and or watching via word of mouth in our
and he put his money where his mouth was, you know what I mean? And it worked out for him. But it worked out for Ava. I mean, Ava seems to be doing just fine. She can't miss.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying, like, as far as
and even with this one, a lot of word of mouth for Black folks, it worked. Because I don't know about y'all, I saw it and I was calling everybody. Like, you need to go see this.
I'll say this. I don't know that you called this movie a success. Assuming these box office mojo numbers are right, like the budget for this movie was $38 million, and it only did like $5 million at the box office.
That's bad numbers.
That is, and true. And again, I don't know if this movie was even playing everywhere at the theater.
Which one?
If it were selected theaters,
it was. So that's what I do. I saw the selected theaters thing. A lot of people I know saw it at screenings. Almost everybody that saw the thing saw it at a screen. So I don't know if any of those people to go pay to go see it after the fact, right? You know,
well, then let's compare. What about American Fiction? Like, what was there more marketing for that?
So you said she did. I thought they said she did well that weekend. She didn't do well.
But I'm also wondering, like now, about things like movies. If we should be thinking about other places to put our, because people who goes to the movies as much anymore, like to the movie. I mean, on the grand scale, we
post-pandemic. Post-pandemic.
You're weird. You're nervous. So yeah.
The budget for American Fiction was less than $10 million, and it did $22 million in the box office.
See, that's crazy when it comes
to
that.
How did Origin cost so much money? Oh, because they went on site to all them places, didn't they?
They went
she went all around the world. They gave Angelou Ellis a little vacation. She was out there in Dubai.
I'm hoping this Origin is going to be like, what's the movie that came out? The guy who did Suck in the Sunken Place. What's the name?
Oh, Jordan Peele.
You know how that movie came out and nobody was really talking about it. Word of mouth.
Which one? Get Out?
Get Out. Remember, people were not really talking about Get Out. Next thing you know,
talking about Get Out.
Well, what I will say is
word of mouth.
The first weekend that joint popped, every single person who saw it was like, "You gotta go see it."
That's right. And then word of mouth got Get Out on the.
Okay. I think it did like $30 million this first weekend, and then it ended up doing like $170, $80 million.
But I didn't know nothing about it. Like you said, people were like, "You got to see this."
Everybody I know was like, "Bro, have you seen this movie? You need to go see this. You gotta go see this."
The Blackening did really well, though. That was another word of mouth because they had some promo.
Well?
Which one?
The Blackening. I thought it did well enough for them to come out with the second one. Or is it a TV show?
Series.
The Blackening have a TV show coming.
They have something else coming because the one guy, I think his name is Durand or something. Dwayne Perkins, the writer for the show. He said something about they were doing something part 2. I think they're
That's what I thought.
The second one.
You know, what I'm thinking is that
it did $20 million at the box office.
See.
But it seems like it's really hard to reach people today. Like me, most of us are watching TV that has no commercials, right? Like the shows that we watch. Then for me, I only watch the news. I mean, the TV just enough to see the weather real quick in the mornings. Otherwise, I'm not seeing TV.
Yeah, everybody's so distracted.
So it's like, movies or whatever, you've got to really be creative and how to reach people, how to get to people.
How to get in everybody's algorithm.
I mean, that's why blockbusters are all they're making now. They didn't make the blockbusters or the super indie films, right? That's the
it's the clips that go viral, right? Because it's the one part that's like a minute or a minute and a half long that goes viral from one part of the movie or the show, and now you're like running to see what it's called.
White people like me.
You got me.
When I said I was waiting on that movie.
Yeah, because the white people like me, I only see the stuff black that's coming out, right? So let's say the rhythm is working where they only seeing whites. Like I don't know any white movies that are out right now because I just don't. Yeah, because that's not part of my algorithm. You see what I'm saying? So that'll drive your numbers down because it's more white folks in the world than. You see what I'm saying? So that'll drive your numbers down because I don't see white movies that come out. I mean, they don't come in my world at all.
So I'm a TV watcher, so I'm gonna see all that stuff because. Fridays, I'm gonna watch SmackDown.
You see
Mondays.
You watch that on Peacock? You watch that on like regular TV? Because I don't watch the stuff with commercials. Either.
No, I have YouTube TV. So even if I'm watching it afterwards, I'm recording it. Yeah, and they will. Yeah, they have the commercials on.
But while you watch it does not have commercials though.
No. Some of them they force you to watch.
Yeah, they do.
A lot of them joints are Hulu. When I be watching like Abbott Elementary, like there'll be like a short commercial between the little
Hulu Live. When you watch Hulu Live, you watch like live one. It does.
Yeah, everything
Or
has
max,
out
they'll
too,
be
man.
like, here's a 2-minute commercial at the beginning, so the rest of your watch is free.
Too. I thought I was paying off the commercials.
Yeah. No, they coming back to get you.
They are.
Yeah, they're not going to let the ad money go.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I appreciate it because you used to be able to take breaks during commercials before. Go on commercials, go in the kitchen and get you a sandwich, come back. Now it's like, how do you just? I got the pause. I got to do too much. Right. Commercials give you a little break. No,
Good
good break.
Because like now I'm thinking that for people who don't watch a lot of TV, watch most shows who are not screaming. And like me, I try to limit my internet. So it's like I'm gonna have to when I get on, I'm gonna have to hit it. I'm gonna have to see.
I'm on social media, right? And I don't know nothing. I ain't been on social media since.
Me too.
I
I'm
don't have
limited.
any idea what's happening
Good for you.
except what I read in
But
newspapers.
then you gotta worry for the children because they're on
I
TikTok
was
for
just about to say
hours
that.
on days.
My kids don't even watch TV shows. They
It's
watch
TikTok.
YouTube shorts.
Yes.
They watch it. If it ain't a video that they can watch that's like 2 minutes, they ain't even watching it. I try to watch movies with them. They just be like, this is so long.
Yeah.
The attention span is
Like, can we make this movie in 30 seconds or less?
Can we go back, guys, real quick to Erasure? Did y'all like that book or not?
Which one?
Erasure.
I'm like, wait. I was like, wait, what?
I got to talk about it. I wasn't here. I love that
I
book.
wasn't here, unfortunately.
Oh.
Hey, you text me. Someone said we didn't see you last month. Send me the book. I show up, but you weren't here.
I know. I text her like, you still went back to the club.
I missed one month
Because that's the night when they had the 50th anniversary. I mean, hip hop at the Wizards game. So
Right.
like, Wizards or book club? Hip
Wow.
hop. The Wizards are trash. No, it was KRS. They had the 50th anniversary of the hip hop at the end.
The
You could have
concert
came and went to the
series.
game afterwards.
So we went
Trash.
to $18 tickets, and then you get to go downstage.
When you got $18 tickets?
Because they're
First of all, when? I'm saying.
Are you
We
serious?
are so far
Okay, they got
topic.
We talk about everything
So
we
let's
talk
get ready to
about.
come.
Wait.
No,
No.
so
Now
She has
they
more.
the
Okay.
next one person coming is April, whatever.
I
Somebody
did
that
see
I like.
Babyface and back.
They gonna be with the Wizards. They got $18 tickets. They had a good team.
I know they got a good team. That's why I was confused. Like, why is it so high?
No, you get $18.
Oh yeah,
tickets.
game time now.
But when the
Yeah.
concert starts, they let you go down to the bottom.
Yeah,
You down there.
You walk in and like,
Hey,
Jake Hollister.
I already bought my ticket for the next game. Did y'all like it? I think Erasure's such
She
clever.
got
writing.
last point about this book. Okay,
Okay.
wait, yeah.
We're going to touch on both of those.
You guys know how I like to bring out page numbers. So,
She do. She
on
hungry,
page
too.
286, it starts talking from, it's a clip from this article that the man wrote. But I just think it just talks to Reeves and how he just had this intuitive and just really keen eye. Maybe he wasn't. But he talks, he's saying how Reeves commenced to shift uneasily, and then when the reporter asked him what was the matter, he said, "There's a N-word across the street who ought to be arrested." When I asked why, he said he could tell every time when a Negro had been breaking the law just as soon as he saw him. And when I asked him how he could tell, he said, "Every Negro who is guilty has a fear on him, and when he sees an officer, he cannot hide it, but tries to get away as quickly as possible." And I thought that was interesting, giving racial profiling and how it is today.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he also said after that, we can't be sure that that's actually used but
Because the reporter might put that on there.
Yeah.
When he said, I was like,
a white man reported on this, so we don't know if this is what he actually said.
he might say that. I don't sound like I know him. Like, I don't think he would say that. And then when he said that, I was like, oh, okay, that, yeah, just maybe more
Right,
colorful. Just gonna put words in his mouth.
I think the tragedy of these stories not being just told is that, a lot of our children and us too, they're not hearing the full range of blackness,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then you're seeing them feeling same thing. A lot of people in our generation felt hopeless. What can we do? We need these stories to show us the possibilities of what can be done, because there are still children today who feel like in that bubble, whatever that bubble is for them. They don't see the possibilities.
I think we need multiple stories and not just the first Black whomever, right? Even like one of my
Just a
favorites,
story.
Bessie
Yeah.
Coleman, right? Like
Yeah.
she was the first Black woman aviator, but who are the other phenomenal and remarkable Black women aviators who have come after her because of the work that she did?
I read about so I have a thing about Black mediocrity. I do.
Okay, W.E.B. Du Bois.
And I feel like there's space for Black mediocrity. Like, we don't always have to be, excellent all the time.
That's the goal.
What happened to the dude who was sorry? He was not really a hard worker, but he's stumbling some money like dummy Donald Trump. He's not really that bright, but he made like I just need there to not because then what if you're the kid who was like you know that you are not part of the top 10% of your group. You're just not. So if I'm not that, then that means I can't do anything. All these people that I read about are so remarkable, and I'm not remarkable. I'm regular. I want to hear about. They're kind of like regular people who still were successful because everybody can't be Bessie Coleman.
Colson Whitehead actually has a book about that, about apocalyptic New York, called Zone something. I think it's like Zone Zero. But it is about a black man who wasn't the greatest. He wasn't the worst. He was just mediocre. But he survived the apocalypse.
Yeah, you make it do what you got to do and make it happen. Everybody can't be.
My argument for why Tyler Perry wins.
It's true though.
It's mediocre.
Well, he was.
But it does its job.
Actually,
somebody to that lady movie. Is it terrible, y'all?
Yes,
I'm scared. I'm so scared. Even my the guy I worked out with, he was like, "That's the worst movie."
It's absolutely not the worst movie you've ever seen.
He just said it's bad. He was just
this is whatever.
But
okay.
I have a concern now. Like before, I didn't mind Tyler Perry just making shenanigans. Now I'm getting concerned.
Why?
Because this is 2 movies in a row that have not been the worst movies I've ever seen. They've just been solidly mediocre and thus forgettable. Like nobody watched A Jazz Man's Blues. You know why? Because it wasn't good. It wasn't bad. I mean, it definitely wasn't good, but it wasn't the worst movie. It's just kind of like
a movie.
All right, whatever. There was nobody eating air in the back of the joint. There was no Medea character coming in acting a fool. There was nothing memorable about it. Mea Culpa is not a memorable film. It's just it exists. Okay, cool. Kelly Rowland's in the movie. I'll check that out. But, then it's not good. We won't remember this movie in a year. You know what I'm never going to forget? Diary of a Mad Black Woman. Dragging her across that screen. The extremes of it's like if Tyler Perry's going to start putting forth a little more effort in his movies, he's going to be forgotten pretty soon. Because if his movies are just run-of-the-mill, whatever,
I agree.
And we don't remember them because of the shenanigans.
And they don't make you want to go back and watch them.
The reason everybody remembers A Fall from Grace is because it was so bad. And then my man yelled ashtray bitch in the middle of the movie. Yeah. It's like, okay, now we got bars. We got, Felicia Rashad hitting people with loaves of bread. We got people committing suicide from 4 feet in the air. It's like
I can't believe
I don't
Felicia
know.
Oh man, see, but I will never forget A Fall from Grace. Meanwhile, I forgot A Jazz Man Blues even existed until I was writing my review of Mea Culpa. I was like, damn, what was the name of that movie that he made? That there was all this movie was like 27 years in the making, all this, and then I watched it. I was like, all right.
He really is not making stuff to make you want to go back and watch it again. So it makes me wonder if it's like you said, is it going to be lasting?
My joint. So it's good deeds because it's so ridiculous. But see, that's what I'm saying.
The one with Janet Jackson and all that. Why Did I Get Married? Those were.
Man, that second one was wild, boy.
The second one was too wild. Yeah. Yeah. The first one was a nice.
Listen.
That was just nice.
They need to teach psychology classes about the way the second movie ended, and what she did to that man, and then how a year later the Rock showed up and she good. She done killed her husband, and next thing you know, the Rock is there, and she's like, ooh.
And it's funny how Jill Scott is kind of being pigeonholed into those same type of, like even on the First Wild Spell, she's still the same type of person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
We
covered real quick before we finish, y'all.
I got my point across.
We covered everything.
I love it.
Good old Black Gun, Silver Star.
I guess my last thing I would say is more black frontier stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I said I got a great appreciation for Oklahoma. And now, I want to visit. I've never been.
Somebody can remake Little House
on the
Prairie with Charlie Ingalls instead of Charles Ingalls.
Period.
Charlie.
Bonanza, but with black folks.
Period. I would watch that.
Chuck.
I mean, I'm just saying, little squad on the prairie. You know what I'm saying? On the prairie, but make it DC Prairie. You know what I'm saying?
Yes!
This is what we're talking about, right? Like our stories. You just a family from DC goes out west back in 18.
Even like Portland though, because a lot of people still don't know about Portland's Black history.
Sure don't. I didn't know nothing about that.
There's like 8 people up there, though, ain't it?
Apparently, there's a lot more.
And they have
Like, a small section of Portland with black people in it.
Well,
and they have a history.
we should hear some stories about that because I'm sure he did start out.
Yeah, you're right. It's probably fascinating. They probably got all kinds of stories.
It's got to.
Yeah, shout out to Kim Johnson who tried to talk about the modern black Portlander. So
yeah, what's the rapper from Portland?
Amine, he's great. Yeah.
You know, there you go. He tried to make that a thing.
Yeah.
He's Ethiopian.
Yeah, that's true.
So he blended those many worlds, but dude was good.
He still is.
He was alright.
He's still making music with like Kate.
Yeah, how much more Black Frontier stuff? Listen. Why don't you start a production company? Mahogany Films to go with Mahogany Books.
Period.
And listen, we'll write something up right. We don't even need a script.
We ain't got a
problem.
No. I got some stories to tell. Because the way you messed me up with that Tubi information, I got a rabbit hole. I called my friends and said, "Did y'all know the people on Tubi?" I was so hot. I was on the phone like, "Yo, that people on what? Tubi."
Yeah, it's white people.
Fox.
But to be fair, Tubi's just a movie platform. Like there's
I know.
Tubi.
It just blew me.
Like, we only think of black people.
Stops.
Everything is on
that
Tubi.
messed me up. I called my friend like, "I ain't never gonna believe it."
So there's a new commercial
What?
that runs on Fox, and it runs on like their, not just like Fox News, but it's some of their other stations that they have. They have this this commercial, and it's like Kevin Costner, it's David Miller, it's like all these white guys who love America. We're telling America's story from our perspective.
Mm.
And you pan, and it's all white men. There might be one white woman in that, but all I notice is majority white men. And what they're proclaiming is, "Oh, we're telling everyone's story." They're not telling our story.
Mm-hmm.
You said it's on Fox, right?
This is Fox. This is Fox's commercial promoting how they're telling America's story. My issue is, again, this is the thing that drives me crazy about it. You have this company, Fox, who owns Tubi. It's a platform. Yes, it's a platform. What they're putting out is they're not really supporting artists to create elevated, to nurture artists to put out good content. They're letting you throw out mess, and then this mess is what seeps into the psyches of the rest of white America. This is what Black America is. And then they go off and they produce high quality content telling their story of what America is. This is how to use propaganda.
Bro, white people don't watch Tubi.
But
we have turned it into the black platform. That's why you're surprised that white people own it. They think that
they're making money off of it. So
through the ads that run through the black movies that we watch on Tubi.
They're making money off of Tubi with trash.
It's not all trash, to be fair.
Not all trash.
It's not all trash. There's some bad movies, but
the thing that I think you have to be honest about. There is, for some people, the type of art you put out can be very influential. If there are people who don't believe that rap is fictitious, there are people who believe that some of these artists are real gangsters, and this is how they perceive Black
you're
folk.
gonna believe that anyway, bro. Like you're not changing hearts and minds by putting respectable. Like that's a respectability.
It's not a respectability politics. No, it's not, because what you can do is you can have this and more of the other stuff. If all you're going to feature and promote is this type of story, this is what everyone is saying.
But they don't even promote that stuff. We do. So Tubi isn't like Tubi's like Harvard right now. You don't even have to advertise Tubi. People just go to Tubi. We are making them. We are making those movies. We are doing that stuff. And the reason people put it on Tubi is because it pays more than Netflix and Amazon and all these other spaces. They make more money per click on those than any of the other spaces do. Mm-hmm. Nobody watching that is going to change their heart and mind because they see another movie about Martin Luther King Jr. or whatever. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's messed up to be like you think we are making the movies and we are putting those movies up there and getting paid off of that stuff, right? So it's not like if anything, the Tubi, they just created the platform that allows these people to upload that stuff, right? So that's what they're doing. We're making the stuff. Like, and if anything, it's kind of entrepreneur paradise. I get to build my movies and put my movies out there, and some people are going to see them and some people aren't.
Right.
Like, I can't even blame Tubi for this.
This feels like American fiction all over.
It's the issue of who's benefiting from that. My issue is white folk who is benefiting from it, especially white folk who then use that money to reinforce white supremacy through policy.
Would you be happier if black people own Tubi and did
a little bit? Honestly, a little bit, because at least
we won't be calling them sellouts. Then we'd be calling them black people who create space.
We celebrated Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry, Chris, it's terrible stuff.
Fair enough. Tyler is I don't know why we have decided that Tyler is the one that Black America is. What's the messaging, right? The religious messaging and all that stuff. He started off with the very high moral, like giving black women HIV for cheating on their husbands and stuff like that. You know,
if we're gonna hold, if we sit here and we held. I enjoyed what was that movie? Book of Clarence.
I did too.
Right. I found it very entertaining. I enjoyed it. But we can critique whatever the brother's name is.
James Samuel.
Right? We can critique Tyler Perry. Right? It's just like you were saying, it's like ho-hum. It's whatever. But he's creating all of this in a certain standard. My point is I don't want to take away anyone's ability from being able to express themselves and create their art. My concern is, from a marketplace standpoint, what this art is used for. The art is used to reinforce what people think of us. I love hip hop. Hip hop wasn't created for white people in mind. But what happened is white people got a hold of it. Oh, I love this. I'm going to commercialize it, make us a bunch of money, sell it to all these white kids. Now they're running around thinking they can use the N-word anytime. They think it helped to
made a lot of money too, bro.
No, we made. I'm not saying we didn't make any money. Who made the most money?
But you can't look at it that way.
You have to look at it that way because that money why not? That money is then used to reinforce white supremacy.
Several of those same people who made money then turned around and built their own spaces to then make all the money on that.
Right, but they didn't make the bulk of the money. The bulk of the money is going to the top 1%. Who then they support Donald Trump.
So your problem is capitalism.
My support is not capitalism.
That's a capitalism problem.
I don't have a problem with commercial, with people using commerce to make money. I don't have a problem with that.
This is the American fiction problem. I mean, the original problem.
Right. I don't have a problem with that. My issue is, if we're going to tell a story, tell a full story. That way people have an option. I want to be able to listen to Mos Def and then jump to Tupac. I want to be able to listen to Common and then go to Biggie Smalls. I want to listen to Ice Cube and then jump to J. Cole. Give me options. Don't just give me 2 Chainz, Ice Cube.
Oh, that's who's gonna be the Wizard.
But where are you at where those are the only options you have? See, this is no. This is the problem I have.
That's the market. That's the point about the market.
That's the problem I have with this. That's the problem I tend to have in general with this argument now. This has always been the argument that people had about the underground, the respectable music versus the commercial.
It's not about respectability.
Hold on. Because, for instance, on Tubi, what you're complaining about right now, there are some bad movies on Tubi. There's a ton of great movies on Tubi that are created by black people. I watch all of them, right? Well, what we do the same thing all the time where we over-index that it's only the trash that exists. It's only the trash that people are paying attention to. That's the stuff that gets all of the attention on social media. It gets the salacious stuff. Same thing with hip-hop, where we're like, oh, the Mos Def never gets heard, but Lil Wayne or the pick whatever, something like that is the person that we're promoting, whatever. But while those people are getting promoted, the other people are in this space. Like Mos Def is famous. Mos Def sold a lot of copies of Black on Both Sides. Mos Def did really, really well.
Right, but how many? My question is, how many more Mos Defs are there out there that did not get an opportunity? Versus
did not sell as much.
No. Hold on. No.
They still exist.
No. Hold on. Let me finish. How many Mos Defs got an opportunity versus how many Lil Wayne's got an opportunity?
Y'all not gonna do Weezy because Weezy.
I don't.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a bad example.
Right.
But in the 90s, hold on, let's keep it wrong. There are poor righteous teachers. There's Paris. There's the lynch mob. Ice Cube's entire apparatus after he leaves NWA is all about like the Nation of Islam. There's Public Enemy. Like you have lots of very famous, very big name artists that you would put into that most freaking Black Star. Like they come out on the same day as Jay-Z and Outkast and do Brand Nubian same day, right? Mm-hmm. By the way, as problematic as anybody that you're complaining about, Brand Nubian, if we're going to go that route, but we would consider that conscious rap. Hell, A Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders, platinum records. These people are selling the same people. Know what I'm saying is we like to think that the only people who have success in these spaces are the lowest common denominator, and that's not true. Kendrick Lamar won a Pulitzer. Like Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, these people are listed as the greatest, like on these greatest MC lists, and they do well. They're millionaires. They're commercially very successful.
But that's not what I'm arguing. What I'm arguing is this: is the variety. There's my issue. What we started off talking about right before everyone got here was when I go down that shelf right there. There are a variety of books that was published by a small press and has sold a ton of books for $9.99, $12.99, 2-3 decades long now. I can have that shelf there along with all the fiction stuff, right beside the urban stuff. In the early 2000s, what you saw, what retail did, was you walk into the bookstore, you didn't see those books. What you saw was Quan, Zane, Animal, all the urban literature books. You didn't see W.B. Du Bois up front. You didn't see any. That's my issue. When they have the books are out there and they're published, they're not choosing to show that stuff. They're not choosing to write Bass Reeves into the history. What they're doing is they're choosing to skip over Bass Reeves in the history.
But that's different.
That's
rap, in music, especially, that stuff was still all being created. If the argument is it wasn't being promoted as much, if the idea is that the quote unquote positive imagery wasn't being promoted as much over the lowest common denominator, that's going to be the case on anything. But it's still there, and it was these rappers were still doing just fine. Because keep in mind, Kanye West, biggest selling artist of like 2004, 5, 6, like he is, and we viewed him as the intelligent choice. He was he outsold 50 Cent.
That's not my.
What I'm saying is the variety existed, and the variety was being marketed. The idea is that
there's a 70-30% is not good enough to me.
What is though?
50-50. Because that might not be what I want to listen to.
But you don't have to. I guess what I struggle with in the conversation is it's as if it's being presented to me as if the choice doesn't exist, as opposed to it's not just being put in the front of the store, right? Like because it's still there, it's still being made. If that's what you want to listen to, the options are there. Especially like today, the options. There's a bazillion options of different types of artists. There's probably more different types of like artists musically. These kids ain't even rappers, but it's just all musicians at this point. Like there's so much of that that's available. It would be hard to even figure out the 50-50. So, and where is the negative stuff? Like 21 Savage, for instance.
I mean, I don't even want to call it negative. The negative positive, because I'm not into the respectability thing. It's not about negative. It's about we hit on all these keywords today. We talked about not only focusing on Black excellence, right? Just average Black folk, right? We talked about seeing a variety of Blackness. All I'm saying is if the people who are footing and putting most of their money behind these things, they're not focused on having on telling that broader story of Blackness. They look at what are considered the stereotypes. Those are the things that they push to the front. We talked about not everyone is origins not getting some of the funding. That some of these other movies might be getting? Why couldn't Origins get the same kind of backing that Oppenheimer got? It's an incredible movie, incredibly shot, incredibly well-written movie. It should be a leading award-winning type movie.
Yeah.
It is fantastic. I'm not going to, like, Book of Clarence, that's whatever. Origins is incredible. And you learn so much. But Oppenheimer got millions of dollars put behind it. It's huge. My only concern is, and this is me coming as a person who was in the space of like looking at retail and what the story tells each and every person when they walk into a space, they look at a commercial, they watch a TV show, something is being reinforced.
Yeah.
Some type of stereotype or some type of messaging is being reinforced. And my concern is, how do we shift it and take more ownership of it and push so I can be ratchet at 5 o'clock and at 5:30 I'm a jump to the conscious. If that's what I want to do, that's my choice. You can choose to do whatever. My concern is not everyone is getting the same push or opportunity to be put out front as what other folks deem as this is what is important. This is what people should be listening to or seeing. And that's not all that we are.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it speaks to this idea of ordinariness. And when I think about, you have to bring critical race theory, but it's something like when we think about like institutional racism and the ways that it works is that things that are like whiteness is like centered and it's ordinary. And when something's ordinary, then it's just like regular and natural. And so when we think about things that are promoted the most, the things that are the easiest accessible, we think of as ordinary, right? And so if I feel like I'm hearing you right, it's just that like most stuff shouldn't be extraordinary, right? Kendrick Lamar shouldn't be extraordinary. He should be ordinary.
Yes.
Just as ordinary as, I think if you ask kids about what is hip hop, they'll think of like what's ordinary is what they have easiest access to. And they'll say the rappers who we might think of as being more, not sensational, like industry, right? And even when I was in the 90s, the most deaf they were still thought it was like, they were in like a different camp. It wasn't just like hip hop. It was like the underground hip hop, the conscious rap, and then it was the gangster rap and the, right? And so like, I think this idea of like, how do we make our Blackness ordinary? That like all of the things exist and they're all ordinary, so that it just becomes kind of like a regular thing of what we think about Black people, that when you close your eyes and you think about Black people, you think all the things. And I'm actually going to use Bashers as an example in the sense of like, when we think of Black men who are big and strong and do these things, and with all the work that I do around stereotypes and deconstructing stereotypes, in my mind, Bashir was like a big dark-skinned guy. So that's why when they described his son, I was like, well, it dashed everything that I thought he was. Because in my mind, from hearing that he was just some big or burly Black guy, Mandingo, like running around the West, like capturing people, to find he was like a tall, light-skinned guy with blue eyes. Like, and that just didn't fit the kind of like stereotype of what I think an ordinary Black man who has that kind of like physical prowess would look like. And I think that's because what's pushed around like what that person looks like is the big Black Mandingo guy, right? And so I think this idea that like what messages we see the most or what becomes ordinary and becomes a thing that's like the representation of people in their subconscious of what something is. And so if all of it becomes ordinary, then there is no like one image of like what is Black. It's just kind of like, you won't know unless you actually engage the thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Far more eloquent than I would say.
I mean, I 100%. And I think that's more the case now than it was probably in the 90s. You are right. We definitely backpacked folks and stuff like that, and they hated that. The Talibs and most, they hated the whole the backpack rapper thing. But they were also highly successful. And let's not forget, like back then, Raucous Records was a thing. That was an entire label pushed by the white man, because Rupert Murdoch's son was the owner of Raucous Records. That was like literally
I didn't know that pushing. Was Rupert Murdoch's son.
Yeah, Rupert Murdoch's son was the owner of Raucous. Is literally pushing this stuff out there and making artists like Common, like putting them on these huge projects and things like that, right? Eminem came through the Rockets camp at one point, right? So, I guess for me, the reason why I always struggle with those things is like, I get I want 50-50, but the world ain't 50-50. Like, we are not 50-50 when it comes to this type of stuff, right? Like, maybe back in the Motown era when everybody was just listening to the same stuff because that's all we had access to. But the reason why all that stuff works is because the South had no say-so at the table.
Period.
Right? When we showed up, all of a sudden, y'all all got pissed.
Yeah.
Because when we started making music, that sounded like the South. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, hip-hop is ruined.
Yeah.
Because we are in a very but let's be real, that's what happened, right? For a time, hip-hop was very New York, it was very LA. All of a sudden, when we showed up, then hip hop was ruined. Cash Money ruined rap.
Right.
Master P ruined rap.
Outkast ruined rap.
Atlanta ruined rap. Like all that stuff is that's what really went wrong. Because I would be willing to bet.
And no one thought of like 2 Live Crew as like.
I really would bet money if you started thinking about if people were to ask you who ruined rap, you'd be like, man, Master P. Cash Money and these people like that, that'd be where everything took the turn. Like because even Bad Boy was still buff. I mean, Biggie was still Bad Boy.
No, so I can only speak for myself. When I took a break from hip hop because of all the nonsense, was with Pac and Biggie. When my father comes to my room in the morning and says, "Hey, Big has been killed," like why am I? What is this?
But Cash Money were already here by then.
No, but it wasn't about Cash Money. It was the fact that
they were there for us. They weren't a thing until they were for us down south. We knew who Cash Money was.
Right. It was the issue was it was about a lifestyle that devalued Black life to the point where they were actually dying, not playing a character, not a persona. The artist was actually dying.
But that break must have been long because Mos Def is like 99.
But that's my point.
What? I'm just saying. I'm not trying. It's not a God thing. I'm just saying.
No, it's not about the. I stopped listening to hip hop because it was toxic for me. Everybody. It took me to read Tupac's poetry book to like revitalize my interest in it. And that let me get back into what they're saying, and I can find the stuff that wasn't as toxic to me. And I love Big. I love Pop. My whole point is it's not about the region or whatever. It's about, again, what you were saying, the Black ordinariness. Like, I just want to see, I don't want everything to be about East Coast, West Coast beef. That's all you were hearing. People were making money off of this. All the magazines, it was money in it. But people were dying. Like, that's BS. That's my issue, is the capitalism of it is still about exploiting Black lives. That is what I have an issue with. And if we're going to, and they're telling stories that help support their theory that.
But do you have a problem with where? Because Master P owned everything, like the cat. So what I'm saying, but you could argue their music was as toxic. I mean, it was all bang bang, shoot 'em up, all the other stuff. But they're making the money off of this. I mean, that's why Master P was such.
So I have no problem because now I can hold. I love ownership. If it's going to be me, I'm going to sell Urban Lit. And I'm going to sell Toni Morrison. And you as a consumer can choose what you like best. Right? You can come in here. I got some Black Republican books up in here.
You're making Black Republican. I promise you that.
That's what I'm saying. It's about the variety. You can choose what you want. Because again, one month you're on this, and next month you're on something else. But if I go into another bookstore, all they were showing me was Urban Lit. That's my issue.
Right.
I want to have ownership of it. So Master P can own it, and then he can have this artist, and he can have that artist. Give me a variety. Let me choose, and don't just force feed me one thing. That's where I stand at in a position.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I just feel like I'm beating a dead horse. I just genuinely feel like there's so much out there and available that, like I never felt like I was being force fed because I always had the options because I always knew the options existed. Right. Now maybe that's a me.
Yeah, that is. Because I would say there's a way in which, like, my senior year of college, I started dating a guy who was a rapper, he was into music, and there were just things, and I remember complaining about. He's like, "There's so much," and there are people I had no idea existed, but because that was his life and he was in it, he knew where all the things was. But as a person who was a casual consumer, I could only take what was given to me, and what was given to me, I didn't like. Right. And so he introduced me to Little Brother and right. Like these people I had no like conception of, didn't know they exist. Obi Trice, I love Obi Trice, right? But like without him, there's no way I would have found him. Right. And so like I wouldn't have stumbled into him, particularly at that time. We didn't have, all the resources they have now. But even now, I think it's actually harder because there's so much. There's no focus. It's just like everything is just like, it's like a flashing lights. Everyone's like in a strobe light. And it's just like so much information and so much things now that people actually get even more lost and don't necessarily know where to start. Like, how do you categorize what things are? Because even though people hated it, you knew what we meant by the backpack rappers. You knew what you meant. Like, we knew exactly what that meant. Now, I don't know if you could even like Google it. Who's going to show up? The people of our genre, our generation, like who are theirs? I'm not saying they don't exist. I just don't know who they are because that's not my scene. But
I think to your point, like that's what I was saying before. These kids are all just musicians now. Like Tyler the Creator, like basically put this entire system in a blender and spit it out. Because what do you even call him? Like he got the commercial success. He's a fashionista. But he's making like he's one of the most coveted producers. Like he's from the burbs. So it's like. They're the kids that rappers used to beat up, but now they're the cool kids. Yeah. It's like all of a sudden none of the categories that used to matter to us for whatever reason, none of the stuff matters anymore. But you also something interesting, which is like as a casual listener, that's also the other part. Most people are casual listeners, right? Most people couldn't care less about what's being sent to them anyway. They're just taking what's there. Like if it happens to come on, cool. If it doesn't, cool. And so I'm in Atlanta in the 90s, right? I remember listening to Gangstar on the radio and Jay-Z, and it was wild. Actually, sometimes I'm surprised at the type of hip hop that they were playing on, like V103. Because nowadays you would think that'd be the underground stuff, but they were playing that, right? But most casual listeners are never going to be part of this conversation because they don't care. Like it genuinely does not matter to them, so they're never going to be making the decisions anyway. It's only going to be people who are discerning enough to decide that I want the other stuff. That are going to go out of their way to find it. So unless somebody introduces them to something and they realize, oh wow, this is wild, like, this stuff is amazing. It's like I don't know how to fix that problem in general, because if you're the type of person that's actively seeking out those books, you're gonna find those books no matter where you are. Like you're gonna look for them and they're gonna be there because you know where to go to find them. But if you're somebody who just walks in the bookstore is like, book me, then it's like you'll grab whatever's available, or you can ask somebody, hey, what do you think is a good book? And you'd be like, then you basically, the world is in the palm of your hand. You're deciding where this is going, right? Like you're deciding.
But I think that's his point, though. Yeah. Because most people are actually casual, right? And so if they don't know something, whatever you show them is what they're going to think it is. Because if I don't know much about something, I take things at face value from who I think the experts are, right? So the people who are distributing it, in my mind, are the experts because they're the people who have control over the space. And they're showing me like their job. So like I'm a professor. My job is to take all the knowledge I have and package it into a syllabus and create assignments in a way that's digestible for the students. So they only learn what I tell them to learn. Like they don't know if I'm teaching them something or not, right? And so there's a way in which the people who control what the casual hearers are creating the narrative, and they're creating the definition of the identity of what something is. And so if people's only encounter with hip hop and Black people is through that's what the casual is being shown, then that's what becomes us.
And that's exactly why we need more Black music journalists, especially for hip hop. Because you go to read a hip hop something and then you're like, oh, this is a white person who is now this expert in our culture and this music.
Right. It's why people used to be reading Very Smart Brothers, but folks want to grow up and do other things with their lives. But
tons of white fans. There's lots of white fans. He sells out auditoriums of white people in Pittsburgh, so the work is still being done. I never had all the white fans. It was the black people who are white people. White people enjoy it. Dane's very educated and very writerly way of getting those points across.
Who?
I'm over here writing about 5 heartbeats. So,
you think Black AF history. There we go.
Yeah. It's like, again, far more eloquent than I could.
Yes, she did. Real quick, y'all, what y'all say about Erasure last year? Y'all liked it?
You still on this? We did not like it.
First off, I loved it.
I loved it. That's some clever white man.
We struggled through the entire conversation.
I think
I know because I wasn't there.
Because we were
been there too, because I loved it. Cause that's some clever.
We should have
writing.
texted. He was watching. He was one page.
But then I couldn't do too much, right? Like you can't be like, like,
show your wife, I'm really not bad.
It's like just go, and then I gotta fight that battle when I get home.
I know that book, man.
We can talk about it once we're off the live
That
cast.
was the worst.
I loved it.
Erasure.
We can talk about it once we're off the live
I
cast.
listened to it.
You had. That's one you had.
No, I read it. No.
I love it.
The 9 chapters of that fake story.
I didn't even read not the fake story. I couldn't get through
I
it.
love my mama.
I couldn't do it. I was dead.
Dude, I wanted to recreate that. I was like, I gotta do this. I want to do a one-man stage play. Just like,
I think it's a very. I thought it was a very clever.
I want to do a performance.
If someone should put money behind you for
I want to do like a one of the paper that he presented. I just want to go read that somewhere out loud because I was listening to this like this is the most brilliant nonsense of all time.
It hurt.
With the fake
And the
Martin
way he
show.
told the story inside the story, I thought it was very clever. And I went
I was with him for about 2 chapters. I said, "Oh, you still going? Don't worry about it." Flip.
It was actually pretty interesting though.
I like
It was awful, actually.
No.
But
I read
the
that
story.
that thing was over with.
I love it.
Basically,
After the third, I love
decided
hit my
the
mama.
movie and the book are two different products.
Oh, 100%.
100%.
That's my problem. That's why I think the movie was bad.
What? Okay.
They
Let's
gonna put
say
you
we're
out.
out
They
of the
about
pod.
that
They
There-
put me out. I ain't going.
Dude.
Ain't going. Well, the movie wasn't bad. It was just too clean. It was just too digestible. Yeah, it was very on the nose.
Too digestible.
It was a very.
All American.
The book was very smart. The movie was very accessible.
The movie is telling my point is exactly why I'm frustrated.
That's what I said.
This dude jumped on the woman. Oh, I was about to say something really bad. The white woman publisher, her entire what she was portraying in that moment of talking to
The way she responded to how
like she was having strong.
She wasn't even in the book.
She was having strong feelings. I'm talking in the movie.
I know. I'm just saying.
She was having strong feelings to this guy who was playing this character. That is,
that's what made the satire, the caricature, the kind of thing. But it was like, I think that's why I didn't enjoy the movie as much as I expected to.
But that's why I love the movie.
The white
is
people are
because what they love is this character of black folk that does not exist.
more like Carter.
He was this person who wanted to write these incredible literary stories. But what they loved was this character, was this person who wrote complete nonsense. And for this, we're going to reward you. For this, we're going to throw all the money behind you. When for his regular stuff,
his regular stuff sucked. Let's be real. Like his regular stuff was not intended to sell,
but it wasn't
more than 2 copies.
It was
His
intended
regular
for
stuff was this
group.
Black Gun.
There we
All right, so
His regular stuff was not supposed to sell.
So we can keep this conversation going. I don't want to keep the folk that is still watching us.
Remember we brought him
I'm
back.
keep
Oh yeah, sorry y'all.
That's it. But
Sorry y'all, go watch the movie.
We are behind. We normally end at 8:00, y'all. So
We started a little late.
Yeah, we started a little bit
technically,
late.
so-
Sometimes we do. And then we definitely veered off into, I think, important conversation.
I mean, you ain't had no syllabus for the textbook. That's what happened. You had a syllabus.
Right. This is supposed to be a class discussion. This is
All right, professors.
I
Bass Reeves. What was Bass Reeves?
Right.
Yeah. And you got 3-4 months to discuss it.
Right.
This month we are reading. We're going to get out of. We're going to go from into hopefully a good fiction book, because I did not enjoy Erasure. This has been a tough start to our reading.
Really?
What was the Erasure? Was the first one, right?
I love Erasure.
Well, our first discussion of the year was for dances, which was
That's
awesome.
right,
Shout out
yeah.
to Nicole.
Right.
Sorry we missed her this time.
Which was fun. So that was good. We ended. So I'm just looking at when we read it in that calendar year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the first book of this calendar year was Erasure,
Mm-hmm.
which,
I love Erasure.
Bass
I think I
Reeves,
missed it.
good history book, but it's as an enjoyable read.
Yeah.
It's not.
And this one is yours, right? You picked this one? Did you pull
Uh,
this one?
That's a good one. I
helped.
read that before.
I helped to pick this one because it's Women's History Month, y'all, and I just felt like love Toni Morrison down. We all do. Can't denote that.
What did I think I had the blue
You
side
picked the
version?
blue
Yeah.
side, and that is a very, very tough book for all the women in all age groups to deal with. And I just said, not this Women's History Month. So we chose something a little different.
I read that before. I liked it.
Okay.
So can you?
Uh-huh.
I can't tell more. You
Okay.
can just
All right. So I'll just read. This is one paragraph from the back. Set in Claiborne, a town somewhere in the South, the Salt Eaters is the story of a community of Black people searching for the healing properties of salt, who witness an event that will change their lives forever. Some of them are centered, some are off balance, some are frightened, and some are daring. From the men who live off welfare women to the mud mothers who carry their children in their hides, the novel brilliantly explores the narcissistic aspect of despair and the tremendous responsibility that comes with physical, spiritual, and mental well-being.
So Toni Cave Barra has some really good women's historical literature or nonfiction literature. She has a lot of really great anthologies and essays, so that's why we leaned toward it. It was almost J. California Cooper, another contemporary, so.
And this one is supposed to have a little bit of fantastical to it.
Yes, which I'm excited
I
about.
can't remember exactly what it was about, but I remember liking it.
We need some fantastical,
That's
because the next 4 months are nonfiction, are they not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
We have Rahiel's book, which is awesome. The event is next Saturday. We still have tickets.
yeah.
So
And then I
What's
think
the name of
Ruha's
the book?
book is after that. Is that
Yeah.
Imagination after that, or is it?
Yeah.
No. That book is.
And
Who is next
I
Saturday?
picked that one. Didn't you?
Oh,
Rahel Tesfamarian.
Oh, the Invisible Ache, which is important. Yes. Rahiel Tesfamarian, she has Imagine Freedom.
Yeah.
And then we have something that is kind of similar. It's like Imagination.
So it's different. So I did actually a book talk with Ruha at Politics and Prose.
Okay.
Don't shoot me.
I saw it.
Independent bookstores.
Oh,
Yay.
yeah. I mean, well, Ruha's the homie.
We
She
like
reached out.
DP.
But yeah, she so I did. It's not the same. Like Rahel's book is 100% about struggle fighting, fighting through. Ruha's book is more think of what's the dude? Oh my God, Malcolm Gladwell. Kind of
Okay.
Indulging ideas of what could be. So it's a lot more of her book Viral Justice, one of my favorite books in the past couple of years. Imagination almost feels like a prequel to Viral Justice, but it's just a lot of ideating on indulging ideas and stuff like that. So Rahel's book is definitely more about resistance and freedom. Imagination is 100% more about using our mind to create the world we want to live in, but using fun ways to do it. All I was going to say is, and this is going to be, I can't help it. I'm sorry. I am who I am. But when I read this, I mean, does this not sound, and I'm sure it's going to be fascinating. I believe in this. But, I mean, this sounds like Tyler Perry movie.
Oh my God.
It's not.
Listen. No, I'm saying this because in Temptation, the movie was set in Belvedere in the South, somewhere in the South. This is set in Claiborne, a town somewhere in the South. The Salt Eaters is the story of a community of Black people searching for the healing properties of salt. Listen, I'm not saying it ain't a thing. I'm just saying that sounds like something Tyler Perry would be like, bro, I think salt got it. Let's make a movie about salt, dog. And you'd be like, and people be like, you sure? He'd be like, yeah, I think salt is it. Who witnessed an event that will change their lives forever. I mean, they're going to really tell you nothing, but we got salt, the South, and changing our lives. I'm just saying, the description when you were reading this, I was over here like, man, this is like Tyler wrote this. Some of them are centered, some are off balance. I mean, that's
Is this not similar to Deacon King Kong though? Maybe
That's what I got.
I'm just saying it's interesting because when I'm listening to this, I do way too much work in the Tyler Perry universe.
Yes.
Understand, but I'm the podcast. I'm the one that gets asked to write all the things.
Yes.
It's really a problem.
Yeah, I think you just need to separate yourself a little bit.
Well, now this will be a
I'm
nice
a scholar.
little-
I'm a scholar of the
No.
Tyler Perry cinematic universe.
You need to do a Tyler Perry detox. But you know what?
That's fine.
So we're about to wrap up here.
Is that our next book?
Yes.
I got that one.
But I'm glad you said that, because what I did as I was reading through this, especially talking about the community people and the variety of individuals, that's what I was hearing, digging King Kong. So I'm hoping that, that's a high bar to me, because that was incredibly well written.
Fingers crossed
But,
it's that and
I mean,
not like
we-
I read it. I
House.
can't remember, but I
K.
remember
Gomorrah
like
is
it.
one of those names.
She's one of those names that's out there.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's about, but I liked it.
Right. So, hey guys, check it out. The Salt Eaters by Tony K. Bambara. We're going to read that this month in March for Women's History Month. We're going to discuss it the first Friday in April.
April 5th.
April 5th, from 6 to 8 back here. We're going to stream it live, as well as we'll be open to meet inside the store.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you guys stopping by to join us. Watch us on TV, on YouTube and Facebook. Peace. Take care.
As always, Black Books Matter. Hello.
Back with batters. Hey guys, S.A. Cosby, can y'all get him here?
We're gonna